This video is sponsored by Audible. For a free audiobook, use the link in the description below. Today is September 23rd, 2024, and Reactor Magazine has released 2 more preview chapters from the upcoming Stormlight book titled Wind and Truth. In this video, I'll give my thoughts on these 2 chapters. These chapters mark the start of day 2, and we see a huge list of names, so we're gonna have a lot of perspectives in these day 2 chapters. Chapter 14 is titled Not Asleep. Right away, I noticed a few things. First, the chapter frame is cracking. All the chapter frames before now have only had a couple of tiny cracks, but now we can see there's huge cracks going all the way through the frame. So that can't be a good sign. And the epilogue that we get for this chapter isn't from the in-world book titled Knights of Wind and Truth like I expected, but instead it's a parable from the in-world book titled The Way of Kings. The chapter starts from Dalinar's perspective. He's tense, worrying about the upcoming contest of champions, and he wonders how much better things would be right now if he had died in Gavilar's place. Oh, you sweet summer child, if only you knew how terrible your brother was. I think Dalinar is definitely the right one for this job, to take on the role of being the leader of the Radiance and facing Odium head on. He has a feeling that something's wrong, and then comes a knock at the door. It's a Windrunner squire bringing the news of the fused army approaching Azamir. Then we get Jasnah's perspective, and we see that her perspective starts just like Dalinar's did. Jasnah was not asleep. And up here we had Dalinar was not asleep. So this is a motif that is played out throughout this chapter, which is pretty cool. I like that. She's laying in bed next to Wit, and we get some insight into her and Wit's relationship, such as how he loves plush mattresses, but she can't stand them. She also knows that Wit lies to her sometimes in very subtle ways, and she feels that she'll never be able to truly trust him because of that. And we get a description of a type of spren we haven't seen before, irritation spren. By the description of them, they basically sound like pink life spren. They're little pink motes that bob around. Jasnah questions if Wit is really asleep because he's apparently hinted to her before that he visits other places at night while sleeping, other worlds, engaging in political machinations. That's pretty intriguing, and we'll get an answer to what he meant by this later in this chapter. We see that her and Wit don't necessarily connect very well. There's definitely some tension in this relationship. But as Jasnah thinks to herself, she knew what she was getting herself into with him, and one did not court an immortal lightly. We also learned that Dalinar apparently plans to face Odium's champion himself. I don't know if this was revealed before, I can't really remember. Let me know in the comments if it was in one of the other preview chapters. Jasnah knows that Dalinar is a good choice, being a bondsmith and a fierce warrior and all that, but she questions whether it could have been her that would be this champion to fight against Odium. We get a bit of insight into Jasnah's insecurities. This is very cool to see because from the outside, Jasnah seems like a very cold, calculating person. She doesn't seem to operate like most people. So yeah, getting this perspective from her and seeing that she has her own problems makes her feel a little more human. We also learn the reason why she hates the plush mattress so much. She was restrained and locked away for a few months by her loved ones during her childhood, but we don't get the reason for this. It's a trauma that she carries, even though everyone else seems to have forgotten about it. Now, I imagine that we won't get the full story about this incident until we get her flashback chapters in the back half of the Stormlight archive. Wit suddenly wakes up and is visibly freaked out, and he uses one of the most interesting curses I've ever heard. Oh bollocks, the darkest, hairiest, greasiest bollocks on the most unkempt nethers of the most wanton demon of the most obscure religion's damnable hellscape. Ah, he certainly has a way with words. Jasnah tries to figure out what's wrong, but he tells her he needs a moment, and he begins writing furiously in a notebook in a strange language that Jasnah doesn't recognize. The way that they're described kind of makes me think that they might be Aeonic symbols, but I'm not sure on that. Let me know in the comments what language you think he's writing in. He then pulls out some color-changing sand, This is likely from Taldane. And he also begins to exert a pressure that pushes on metal objects around him. So he's definitely burning steel here. He seems to be using every magic system at his disposal at the same time. He grows shorter, his hair turns stark white, and his features subtly change. Jasnah realizes that this is his true form. She also realizes that he changed physically, and it wasn't just a simple illusion. So that's pretty interesting. But yeah, Wit's basically like a Pokemon trainer attempting to catch all the magic systems. And this kind of gives us a glimpse into just how many magic systems he's already obtained at this point. This is some wild stuff and I'm loving it. After cycling through all these different magic systems, Wit realizes that his memory has been tampered with, and he knows that he's missing 3 minutes and 27 seconds of his memory. That's some pretty impressive accuracy. He explains to Jasnah that he's been alive for a very long time and that a mortal mind can't track all of those memories, so he stores them in biochromatic breath. And he periodically will review all of these memories. So that's what he was doing while he was sleeping. Although Wit now realizes that his memory has been tampered with, he still doesn't suspect that Odium has a new vessel. He instead thinks that Ray's has learned how to be more conniving. But either way, he decides that he needs to reread the agreement between Odium and Dalinar to look for any potential loopholes that this new changed Odium might try to exploit. This agreement was apparently dictated by the sibling. So what if it turns out that the sibling was working for Odium this whole time? That would be quite the big reveal. It'd be similar to how we learned that the Sion was actually working for the Ghost Bloods the whole time in last week's chapters. If that's the case, then this agreement that Wit's reading over might have been changed in subtle ways. They receive the news that Azir is going to be under attack from the Fused Army, and Wit decides that he needs to contact an off-world old friend for help in reviewing the contract. My guess is that this old friend that he's referring to is Frost. And he also says that there's somebody on Roshar that's knowledgeable enough that could help him, but they aren't on speaking terms. I think he's referring to Cultivation, and he's made a similar comment like this before in one of the previous Stormlight books. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments of who these two people might be that he's referring to. Then we get Navani's perspective, and the motif is continuing. Navani was not asleep. Since she can't sleep, she's exploring the tunnels in the bowels of Urithiru. And we get a lot of cool insight into her new bond with the sibling, such as she can feel all the thousands of different Fabrials throughout the Tower of Urithiru. They feel like a part of her and they pulse in her mind. And we also learn some more interesting things about Tower Light. Tower Light apparently knocks Fused unconscious when they enter the tower now that the tower is fully awake. So that's an amazing defense for Urithiru. And the sibling also tells Navani that the reason that Radiance can't hold Tower Light outside of the tower is because humans are too full of holes. Navani can now hear the rhythms of Roshar thanks to her bond. She can also forego sleep altogether because she's part of the tower now and the tower doesn't need to sleep. So this bond with the sibling seems pretty amazing for Navani, but there is a downside. She can't leave the tower for extended periods or the bond will weaken. But to be honest, that wouldn't be too bad. It's a massive tower city with all kind of Fabrials and farms and basically everything a person could want. Plus, she can still apparently leave for weeks at a time without risking too much. Navani sees a Keensprin and she's extremely surprised because it's the first one that she's ever seen. So based on this wob, Keensprin are apparently just a nickname for one of the Radiant Sprin. So based on that description of the Keensprin, it almost sounds like it could be a Mist Sprin, which are described as specks of light, like those from a piece of crystal suspended in a sunbeam. That's a description we got from Words of Radiance Interlude 2. But I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments what kind of Sprin you think Keensprin is a nickname for. Then we get Queen Finn's perspective. She, of course, is also not sleeping, but is instead in a hammock on the royal yacht with her husband. And we get some, interesting imagery of the queen. I'm not going to go into detail on that one. She's like a 70-year-old lady. They get the news of the looming Azimir attack, but then they're also informed of a second offensive and that Skybreakers have attacked Yakaved. Plus, there's now an assault force heading straight for Thaylen City. So this is very bad. And then we get Yonagawn's perspective. So Yonagawn is kind of sleeping. He's at least trying to convince himself that he is. But he's really laying in bed, staring up at the ceiling, being watched over by 10 citizens who are apparently praying to him or about him. So yeah, being the Emperor of Makabak sounds like a terrible experience. His perspective here is pretty much just him thinking of all the things he would rather be doing than ruling. For those reasons, he gets excited when the guards arrive to inform him of the assaults that are coming, because it breaks the monotonous protocols that govern his life. All right, so chapter 14 was a really cool chapter. I really enjoyed the not asleep motif throughout the whole chapter. And now that I think about it, everybody from that chapter were all monarchs. So we kind of got to see the monarchs in their off time when they're not having to be so strict in their appearances. And then we get to chapter 15. Chapter 15 is titled Passion Sprint. And we see that the chapter frame is still all cracked. So I'm wondering if these chapter frames will begin cracking more and more with each passing day as we get closer to the Contest of Champions. For the epigraph, we get another parable from the Way of Kings. And this chapter starts from Adolin's perspective. He's using one of the newly functioning showers in Urithiru, and he thinks to himself that this shower that he's taking is the single greatest moment of luxury that he's ever known. I mean, this is some high-tech technology for what they've been used to. This would be really cool to go from almost like a medieval age of technology, enhanced by magic, of course, to this luxurious tower. Shallan shows up shortly after and decides to join him in this shower. She's just as amazed by the concept of a shower as Adolin is. We get some insight on how Adolin is still extremely angry with Dalinar, and he doesn't want to talk to him or see him or just deal with him in any way ever since the information came out about Dalinar burning Evie alive, basically, during his time as the Blackthorn. And he tells Shallan that he's not ready to talk about it yet. So this is interesting. It's like he and Shallan switched roles in a way, since she was the one with so much trauma before that she didn't want to open up about, and now that she's finally opened up about all that to Adolin, now he has his own trauma that he's dealing with, and he's not ready to share yet. Shallan lets Adolin know just how important it is for her to find Mraize and the Ghostblood's hiding place in the tower, because she knows that Mraize is gonna try to move against her. And in order to get to Shallan, he might capture or kill Adolin. Adolin probably will die in this book, unfortunately. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is Adolin gonna survive to the end of this book? Let me know in the comments. We get Dalinar's perspective, and he's heading to the atrium to meet with all the other monarchs about the upcoming fused attacks. Sigzil comes and informs Dalinar that it's not just Azamir and Thalen's city that's going to be attacked, but there's going to be a third offensive by the fused. They're marching toward the Shattered Plains. Dalinar makes it to the atrium, and Marinin, the nursemaid, comes walking with Gavinor. Apparently Gavinor was having nightmares, so she's bringing him up to the top of the tower. That's apparently something that calms him down. I feel like something significant is going to happen with Gavinor this book. I don't know why else Brandon would include this small scene as part of this chapter. And then we get an absolute bombshell at the end of this chapter when Cultivation herself comes to speak with Dalinar. Storms, I was not expecting that. The gods are starting to meddle in the affairs of mortals, and I can't see anything good coming from this. I really enjoyed these two chapters, and I can't wait for next Monday. Make sure you subscribe so you know when I drop these weekly reaction videos. Wind and Truth officially releases on December 6th of this year, but it's already available for pre-order, and you can secure that pre-order for free right now as an audiobook thanks to the sponsor of this video, Audible. All you have to do is click the link in the description and sign up for a Premium Plus membership 30-day free trial, and you'll get an Audible credit. You can use this credit to secure the pre-order of Wind and Truth, or you can use it to get any other audiobook of your choice for free. You'll also get another credit for every month that you're a member. And the best part is that these audiobooks are yours to keep, even if you cancel your membership. I really like Audible. I've been using it since 2017, and I have over 3 months worth of listening time on Audible. It's kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, it's a great product. I definitely recommend it. So use the link in the description and get your free audiobook today. That's it for this video, guys. I'll see you in the next one.